Well, I left one heck of a cliffhanger at the end of the last video and a teaser on what the next vehicle is. So without further ado, here is my new car. It is a 2011 Mustang GT 6-speed manual, and I absolutely love it so far. Let me show you around it and talk about it a little bit. So this is it. This is my dog. He is also here for moral support. Caden! Hi, buddy. But this is the car. It is a 2011 Mustang GT. Like I said, it has the Coyote 5.0. It was the first year of that. It is in overall really good condition. I'll show you around every detail of it. But it has 107,000 miles, I believe. It's running like a top, and I honestly don't think I could be much happier with it. So let's talk a little bit about what's been done to the car before I even bought it. First of all, it has S550 style headlights and taillights. It's also got LED halo rings on the headlight bulbs and in the fog lights. Down here, it has the RTR. I don't know if it actually is an RTR brand, but the RTR style front lip, which I don't mind. It's not my favorite front lip. I'll probably end up replacing that at some point. Blackout 5.0 badges, I put those on there because the badges that came on it were very cringy and kind of looked like my dog, which is very ironic. It has aftermarket wheels of some sort. I am not sure what these wheels are, but they're not terrible. I don't love them. I don't hate them. I probably will replace them at some point in the future. It's got a nice little side splitter thing. I do like that. I'm probably gonna keep it and carry it on through a different rear diffuser. Like I said, it does have S550 style taillights. These probably wouldn't have been the taillights that I would have chosen if I was the one that changed the taillights on this car, but I think that they fit with the style, and I'll probably end up keeping them because I think that they fit the color scheme of the car pretty good. It's got a little wicker bill spoiler on the stock spoiler, which I do like, and I think is pretty nice overall. Obviously, full two-tone black gloss on the roof and on the hood, and I do believe it is actually painted. I don't think it's a wrap. That's about it as far as exterior modifications go. If we show you around in the interior, it is a premium. It's pretty nice. I do like the interior overall. I understand that this interior has gotten like a little bit dated over the last few years, but I still think it's really not that bad. There are a few cracks in the driver's seat in a few different spots. Nothing too bad. The interior, or in the rear seats, I don't know why one of those headrests is up and not the other. That's weird. But the rear seats are in really good shape. Passenger seats in good shape. Steering wheel is in okay shape. I'm probably gonna replace it with a GT500 wheel or something in the future. There is some just general buttons that are worn down and whatnot. It's a really common thing that happens on a lot of different cars, but especially on Fords of this era. Same thing with the radio over here. That one's not quite as bad. Like I said, 6-speed manual, MT82, not the world's greatest transmission, but as a person who used to own a WRX, that doesn't really faze me. Let's pop the hood and go ahead and look what's under there. So, like I said, it is the 5.0. One thing I don't understand why this car doesn't have that my WRX did have is hood struts. Hood struts are so cheap to install. I don't know why every manufacturer doesn't do that, to be honest with you. And also, let's get back to the norm. We got some coffee here. It's a dirty chai. It is very good and I'm enjoying it. Let's talk about the car a little bit. So as far as what is done under the hood, we have a BBK cold air intake. I might replace this in the future because there is a version of this intake that I believe does come wrinkle black. I don't think that is what this one was, and it was coated wrinkle black later. Not very well. There's a few spots that are kind of gross, and I don't really love blue accents. I think that they're hard to pull off as well as other colors like red. And so I might replace this with a different intake system in the future. I don't know. Otherwise, under the hood, there's this weird, probably alarm system that did something at some point and no longer does anything. I do not know what exactly that's about. And I have a different oil cap on here just because random thing. I have always hated Ford's oil caps. I think they're super ugly. I don't know why I care about it, but I just think that the MMR oil cap looks much, much better. So I replaced it with that. It's metal, aluminum, it's nice, I like it. But the big thing that is done to this car, overall, you cannot see, but is down there. Let's see if I can catch a glimpse of it. Aha, right there. It does have MBRP full long tube headers into a MBRP catted mid pipe. So it's a high flow H pipe basically. And then it goes into a MBRP race catback. Overall, I think that it sounds really, really good. I am very happy with the way that this car sounds. Here's a clip of it so that you can be happy too. The only other thing that's been done to this car is suspension. It has Takiko Type D or whatever it is struts. I don't remember if that's what it is, so if it's not, my bad. And you can see the rear of the car. I like where the rear of the car sits. It's low, but it's not really, really low. It's just lower than stock. The front end of the car is pretty near tucking tire, and I thought originally because of this that it might be on cut springs. After inspecting them, there's really no signs of them being cut springs. But either way, the suspension is definitely something that I need to sort out because this thing rides worse than literally any other car I've ever been in. And my parents own a smart car. No, but the ride quality is really, really bad right now and is definitely something that I need to address in the future. But we'll get more into what I plan to do to the car in a couple minutes. First, let's talk about why I chose this car and the general imperfections that need to be fixed. As far as imperfections that need to be fixed, there's nothing huge. There's a lot of imperfections in the paint like this where you can sort of see it's just a lot of really fine scratches in the paint, and it essentially just needs to be buffed out. It's much more noticeable on the black. Someone, maybe it was a little dirty, tried to wipe something off and ended up putting scratches on it. There's plenty of spots like that on the hood as well, but overall the paint is in pretty good shape on the car outside of one spot where it looks like it must have used to had some sort of larger spoiler. Judging by where the mounting points are, maybe it was a California special spoiler. Well, apparently someone damaged the paint doing something, mounting or dismounting that spoiler. I don't know. Obviously, I already pointed out the few imperfections on the interior of the car that I need to address. The wheels have been painted black, not very well. I'm sure they were just spray painted. And there's a few other random cosmetic flaws. And the suspension, like I pointed out, but for the most part, the car is actually in really good shape. When I bought it, it also had a TPMS fault light on, which I'm assuming is probably because I doubt that these wheels have TPMS sensors in them. Every time I've ever put aftermarket wheels on a car I've owned, I've never put TPMS sensors in them. I keep track of my tire pressure. I'm not that worried about it. So there was a TPMS light on. I actually got rid of that with FloorScan and a FloorScan tool, and basically just went in. It's just, if you're not familiar with FloorScan, it's basically a dealership level diagnostic to an extent that's available for a lot of Ford vehicles. And I was able to go in and physically shut off the TPMS sensor in the GEM module on the car, essentially. So that is no longer up on the screen, which is really nice because not having lights on your dash, even if you know they're not a problem, is so nice. But now, why did I want a Mustang? You might be wondering. Well, let me explain. Why did I want a Mustang? Well, I worked at a dealership that sold Challengers and Chargers for a while there, and I worked on a lot of them while I was working there, and I realized just how much I wanted something with a V8. Never owned anything with a V8. My 350Z was a V6. Both of my Subarus were 4 cylinders, and my Dakota is also a V6. My wife's Focus is a 4-cylinder, and that's not enough cylinders. No, I still love Japanese cars, and I really love all cars. My first car was a Jetta, which is a Euro car, which I also like. I know a lot of people don't like Volkswagen. Personally, I've never disliked Volkswagen. I actually like them. I would consider getting another one in the future. But I really realized that I wanted a muscle car. I wanted to try the American side of car culture because I really never have before. And that's how we ended up here with this Mustang. And this particular Mustang and I have kind of an interesting storied past, which is because at the beginning of the summer of 2022, several months ago at this point, the WRX that I was driving at the time, it had its AC go out spontaneously. And I was super upset about that. I'd already put a bunch of different work into the car, just general maintenance stuff, nothing crazy. But I had put so much work and money into it recently, I was so irritated that another thing had gone wrong, even though it really wasn't the car's fault. It had 180 some odd thousand miles at that point. That could happen to any car. But I was so irritated about it, I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna look for another car and see if I can find something. And because I was so interested in finding muscle cars or whatever, I looked at a lot of different things. I really considered buying a Challenger RT that was at the dealership that I worked at. We couldn't work out a deal, so I didn't end up buying it, which is probably good because the slave cylinder exploded like immediately after I test drove it, which is interesting because it drove 100% fine when I was driving it. And not that a slave cylinder is any big deal to fix, and the car got a new clutch put in it, so the guy that did end up buying it probably ended up with a really good deal in reality. But anyway, I did end up buying that car, and I was looking at, you know, a lot of different options, and I eventually kind of landed on, I wanted a Mustang. I don't really know why. I've always liked Mustangs. I went through a phase like probably everyone did where I made fun of them relentlessly, and you know, Mustangs are like butts and opinions. Everyone has them. Not all of them are very good. But the point of the matter is, honestly, the Mustang is the first car that I can remember liking when I was a kid. It's probably the first car that I ever could point at and notice, that's a Mustang. And the Mustang is a real like homegrown hero for people. It's like that very talented jock that's like a quarterback at your high school that everyone knows is super talented and could easily play in the NFL successfully, but he's just a cool guy and he wants to hang out with everyone. This is a terrible analogy, but I think you get the point. And even though typically I don't always like things that are popular because they just seem overrated generally, I've owned a 350Z, I've owned a WRX, and here I am with a Mustang, so I don't think I can really claim to be that original. But here's the thing, I've enjoyed all of them, and thus far I am loving this car. So I started looking for Mustangs, and I found this one at a dealership a couple hours away from where I lived, and I went back and forth talking with the dealership about my interest in the car. I talked to my bank, I got approval for a loan, assuming that I would trade my car in. I went onto their website, I used their trade-in calculator, started to work out a deal with them, and I said, and they were gonna send me a purchase agreement, and I said, and it would have to include that I do have a trade-in. And then they told me, we don't take trade-ins. Which, you know, is not that crazy on the surface, but why do you have a trade-in calculator on your website? I think you can see how that's a little bit misleading, and I thought it was stupid. I'm like, okay, that's dumb, but whatever. I'm still interested in the car. I can sell my car after I buy this one, whatever. I'll make my money out of it. I'll make my money out of it better than I would if I traded it in anyway. So I was fine with that. I was gonna sell my car after buying this one. And so I talked to my bank, and it turns out they could only approve me up to about $1,000 under what the total price out the door was gonna be for this car at the dealership. So I talked to the dealer and I said, hey, if you can match this price, I will come buy the car ASAP. And they told me it's a firm price. That's all they said. It's a firm price, the entire email. And so I thought, well, if this dealer is not going to reasonably negotiate with me, then they don't need to get my business. And so I let the car go, gritted my teeth, drove my car with no AC throughout the summer with the windows down, and it wasn't fun, but oh well, it's over and done now. Now it's freezing, as you can probably see by the state of this coat that I'm wearing. But eventually down the road, I did end up selling my WRX like I explained in the last video, right before my wife and I ended up buying our first house, which is where I'm at right now in my garage. We just moved in recently. And so I knew that I wanted to get another car sometime soon. I didn't think it was gonna be quite as soon as it ended up being. But I talked to my bank, I started looking for Mustangs, and I found a beautiful grabber blue 2011 Mustang GT, white stripes, black wheels, just beautiful. Had a Roush exhaust, and I personally love grabber blue. I know that a lot of people think it's obnoxious, but I'm sorry, it's an amazing color. I love it, and it would make me happy every time I looked at the car. Also, I have a lot of respect for David Patterson. What's up, David? David's not watching this, but regardless, I was super excited about it, and I found out it was at the same dealer that this car was at when I talked to them the first time. And I was like, well, that's annoying, but I'm really interested in the car, so I contacted my bank, I got approval for a loan, I went back and forth talking with the dealer over the course of several days. They sent me the last purchase agreement that I needed to get sent to my bank for this car, for the blue car, on like 5 o'clock one night. The next day, picked up the check from the bank, contacted them in the middle of the day and said, I will be there tomorrow at 10 a.m. to pick up the car. And they said, sorry, this car just sold. I understand there's nothing legally binding about a purchase agreement, but that was just so annoying. The car had been for sale for like 3 or 4 months and hadn't sold, and so I was kind of gutted about it. But guess what car was still there? This one. And guess what car was now $2,000 less than it was last time I talked to them about it? This one, the one with the very firm price. They had had this car for probably 6 or 7 months at that point, and so I said, hey, I'll buy that one. Is it a clean title? Got all the rest of the information I needed about it, and I ended up buying this car. However, the blue car was there when I went to buy this car still, and I did actually get to see, when I got to compare the two of them, this one is in better shape than that car is. That car had some weird cosmetic stuff here and there that was just odd or had been poorly fixed and stuff like that. This car was in better shape in my opinion, and it has more modifications. It's just silver, and I don't like silver. I've never really liked silver, which is hilarious because my wife's car is silver, this car is silver, my WRX was silver, my 350Z was light gray, everyone called it silver. I can't get away from this color, but despite that, still love this car. But the kicker is, the guy that tried to buy that blue Mustang was an out-of-state buyer, and that deal ended up falling through, and guess what car's back on the market now? Actively. As I'm filming this video. I'm really not that disappointed. Like I said, this is the better car, but still kind of annoying. But anyway, I ended up with this car. I knew I wanted to get a Mustang. I was actually considering a lot of different muscle cars in general, and then I kind of fell on Mustangs because they're just really available. I thought about getting an SN95 New Edge and supercharging it. I thought about getting an earlier S197 and supercharging it, and then ended up with, you know what, I might as well get a Coyote and just modify that. It's a better engine platform. I'm sorry, modular 4.6 or 5.4 people. The Coyote is a better engine. Sue me. But now you might be wondering, what do I plan to do to this car? Let's go through that. I generally want to do a basic tune-up to the engine. I'm going to replace the coil packs and the injectors. The injectors need to be replaced with 47-pound injectors so that I can run E85, which is something that I'd like to do because I basically want to do full bolt-on E85 with this car. Boss 302 intake manifold, which means I have to change out the strut tower brace. I was probably going to do that anyway. I want to do a lot of bracing to this car and basically make the last live axle Mustang handle like I know that it can. I might do a Watts link in the future, but for now I'll probably just do a really nice panhard bar setup that's corrected for the geometry of a lowered car, and basically, you know, make it so that this is pretty much the ultimate back road muscle car. Obviously, it's been totally blown out of the water by the S550 GTs with the performance pack, and especially the GT350s and GT500s. But the S197 is not a bad handling car. The front end of the car, it actually really reminds me of my 350Z. The steering is very reactive, it's lively, And the front end of the car really feels like it wants to dive into corners despite the fact that it has a fairly heavy V8 up front. Aluminum block, but obviously it's a big engine. The rear end of the car feels like it's 3 decades behind. And you can really feel that in corners, but there's a lot of things you can do to make a live rear axle Mustang handle, even if it's never gonna be quite as planted as an independent rear suspension car obviously will be. I love the exhaust system that's on the car already, so I'm going to probably leave that. Maybe one day I'll go with an off-road H-pipe or something like that, or X-pipe instead of the catted H-pipe that's in there right now. But honestly, I doubt it. And basically, mostly, I just want to try to go full bolt-on and run a really nice wheel and tire setup, replace these that are on it. As far as suspension, I'm leaning a few different ways, but I'm thinking Fortunato might be the final direction I end up going. Big brake kit, basically make this a car that I could easily daily drive, but I could easily take to the track or to autocross and have an awesome time. Not that I don't think I wouldn't already have an awesome time as it sits right now, but we can definitely make it better. So hopefully you're looking forward to that, because I plan to do so much more to this car than I've done to any car I've ever owned before, and I plan to keep this car for a very long time, as long as things go well. And now for the part of the video that I did not want to do. As I'm filming this video, unfortunately, Ken Block died about, I think, 4 days ago now, and that is a massive loss for the car industry. I wouldn't call myself some sort of Ken Block super fan by any means. The first Gymkhana that I saw, my dad showed me, it was Gymkhana 3 in the Fiesta, doing the crazy stuff around like the industrial park, and like it was a raceway, I believe, and like it was like a really banked course, doing donuts around the Segway. The guy was a legend. And that is an overused term. Someone does something mildly savage or interesting, and all of a sudden they're called a legend. Ken Block was an actual legend, and it really kills me that we can't call him a living legend anymore. Even when people are very, very successful and are arguably one of the greatest who's ever done their specific craft, very rarely has there ever been a person where you look at them and you just know everybody wants to be that guy. But everyone wants to be Ken Block. The guy just did everything, from modifying some amazing cars and doing amazing builds that inspired so many people, to just proving that you can always up your driver's skill no matter what, and you can still be a cool, genuine guy with a positive attitude no matter how successful you are. This is, in my opinion, the biggest loss the car industry has experienced in a very long time. And I think it's gonna take a long time to recover. When Ken Miles was killed in an accident while testing the basically Mark IV GT40, the J car, Carroll Shelby said in a statement, "There will never be another Ken Miles." And I don't know what it is about Kens and being awesome at stuff, but there will never be another Ken Block. History has a way of always moving on to the next person that's the best at one thing or another. But this guy will and absolutely should go down in history for being an absolute pioneer of the automotive industry in so many different ways, an absolute legend, a great guy that it seems like no one has anything bad to say about. Thank you, Ken. You inspired me and so many other people to do more, to be you. I don't know what to say. Thank you, Ken, and thank you guys for watching.